Hey everyone, this is Daniel,
And I'm Jun,
and we are
Korean.
American. June,
Yeah.
did I start too soon?
Huh?
Did I start too soon?
Did you start too soon? What does that mean?
Did the intro music have a chance to complete?
I think if anything, we do it for too long.
Oh,
Last
okay,
time when
okay.
I edited it, we were doing
Oh,
this for
yeah, I
too
cut it
long.
off.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to share a story for when we first moved to Korea.
All of a sudden.
Well, it's a funny story. I don't think I've shared it on air yet.
Yeah. Let's go.
So when we first moved here,
Mm-hmm.
we had to quarantine. It was still quarantine rules. So for 2 weeks, we were staying at an Airbnb,
Okay.
which itself was awesome. We'll post a picture, but inside it had like a small almost like a kids cafe type setup. There was 2 arcade machines
Inside the Airbnb.
inside this Airbnb.
That's
yeah.
pretty
I mean,
impressive.
my wife did a lot of research to find the good one because we'd be there for 2 weeks.
Was it the entire home?
Yeah. There was even like a extension of like this kind of swimming pool because we came in
Really?
August, and if you remember 2 summers ago,
Yeah.
it was freaking hot. It was so hot.
Was it? It was like in the middle of COVID, right?
Yeah, it was the first 2 weeks of August, so it was quarantine times, but also just really hot. So
Was it in Seoul?
in Seoul, but definitely a kind of undeveloped part of it.
Interesting.
But yeah, Christina found this awesome place.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of our first orders of business when moving, we had two major things we needed to do. One was find an apartment to move into, right, full time. And second one was we wanted to buy a car.
Okay.
And so the essentials, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we called up a local Kia. The only car really that we were considering was a Kia Carnival.
Yeah.
So
I heard that the Carnival has a different name in the US. Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is, but I believe you.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just
Sedona?
know
Is it Kia Sedona?
we're too lazy to just look it up. It's probably just like 10 seconds away, Google search. But yeah. I'm just mentioning this because some of our listeners might not know what a carnival is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, I don't know if they have multiple lines, but it's the major minivan.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, there were two cars we were considering. One was the Staria, I think it's called, or the Kia Carnival.
Yeah.
And
Staria, I know what the Staria is.
yeah.
I think the perceptions of Staria in Korea is more of a commercial car, right?
Oh,
For
yeah.
ones
Yeah.
and stuff.
Or for like K-pop bands to get shuttled around.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That would have been cool though.
I was actually a fan of the Staria, at least to test drive it.
Really?
But again, this is COVID, right? We didn't have that much freedom and choice, and everything was hard during that time period because we had to do it kind of distance.
Yeah.
So we were trying to buy this Kia Carnival car, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so we call up a dealer, and I think the first thing we say is like, "Oh, 안녕하세요 or 여보세요, 우리 차 사고 싶어요." Like we want to buy a car.
Yeah.
And, eventually, I won't share all the details, but we eventually do buy it. But the reason I share the story is that eventually, once it was all done, and, we eventually met this person in person, this car dealer, salesman. He hands us the keys. When it's all said and done, right? He actually, before we're leaving, his last words were, "Wow, I can't believe this actually worked." When you first called me, I thought you were a voice phishing scam.
Why?
I just think our Korean was bad, but I also suspect it's like now we've learned in hindsight, you don't just speak directly like that. I don't think it's just such
I want to buy a car.
yeah, just like you call them up and the first words out of your mouth are like, "I want to buy a car," right? But in the US, I feel like that wouldn't be that different or weird.
Really?
But I wanted to ask you, like, if you were going about buying a car and calling a dealer, how would you start that conversation?
Interesting. So to begin with, I don't have a car, so I've never done that actually before in my life. But if I were to say, if I had to buy a car today and I want to get the Carnival, I would say, 저 카니발 조금 알아보고 있는데 어떻게 가격이나 이런 거 어떻게 되는지.
Can you translate now?
So I was looking for a carnival,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if how the prices are
Yeah.
or the options are or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that-
Maybe this is not actually getting to the point I'm hoping to get. It's just
Sorry.
our inability to speak Korean very well.
Mm.
Yeah. My understanding is when we tell people the equivalent of what we were asking was like, hello, car buy now, price please, options don't care, color don't care, right? And it's just like, okay, I can understand why they thought we were scamming them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah. It's a lot of like, I think the Korean language is very nuanced.
Yes. So
Yeah.
not only nuance, but I would say it's also indirect.
Indirect,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think that's the thing that catches me the most off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I hear native Korean speak, there's almost a flowery way about with which they talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like all over the place. It's circular, but it gets the point across. But to me, indirectly, and with a lot more words. But I do admit it sounds like very beautiful. So actually, this is what I wanted to talk with you about today.
Cool.
Which is, I believe that Koreans and the Korean language in general are very indirect. And so, yeah, both culturally, I think Korea overall is indirect. And therefore, language kind of mirrors that. And it's also you kind of speak indirectly a lot of times. And so first, I'll bring up one concept, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Have you heard of something called a high context society or culture versus a low context society or culture?
Explain it to me.
Okay, yeah. So a friend was telling me about this, and now it makes a lot of sense. And, they were explaining it to me from the frame of business contexts. So if like a Korean and American company are doing business together, or let's say there's employees based in Korea and America and they need to work together, what in a business context causes conflict a lot of times is this high context versus low context culture. And so high context means that basically in the conversation, there's a lot of assumptions over, let's say we have like shared cultural background, same ways and methods of communicating, and a lot of things are not explicitly stated, right? Versus in a low context culture and society, whenever two people meet, they just assume that like neither has any shared background or they're not coming from the same place per se. So they say everything very directly and explicitly.
I see.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
for example,
That's very interesting.
yeah. It might be, I just want to bring up a quick example maybe and then hear your thoughts on it. But I don't know, let's say in a business meeting, something needs to be done, like, I don't know, someone needs to order food, right? Maybe in the US context, right? I would be running the meeting. I would just say like, hey, John, can you order food for the room? Right? Whereas in a Korean context, I imagine they might say, oh, I'm getting hungry. Are other people hungry? Might we go about getting lunch? Should we go to lunch? Oh, does someone think that they could order the food? And then like it's expected maybe John would like volunteer to do it because that he knows maybe that's his role and job. But I don't know if that's a great example. It's just I didn't prepare one. That's just something that came to mind. But anyway, let me stop there. I want to hear what you think about that, this concept of like high context versus low context communication.
I think it's very interesting because I think it's related to how homogenous the society is, right? Culturally, race-wise as well.
Yeah.
So that everyone just assumes that they know the context, so it's more, in that way, it's more nuanced and indirect. I think it's a very interesting explanation. You know what's so funny is because I think it's also cultural because when I was working at an American company, sometimes I thought the way that they speak is very indirect.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you think Americans speak indirectly?
From time to time. I'll give you an example. Let's say, like, I want someone to take a look at some document, right? In Korean, I would just say, 이 문서 좀 봐주세요.
Okay.
Right? Just look at this document. Whereas in an American company, what I heard a lot is like, I was wondering if you had the time to take a look at this document or something, right? You know what I mean?
No, oh yeah, but I think
It's like, I was wondering.
Yeah.
It's such a unique expression.
yeah.
I was thinking if you had the time to take a look at this.
So that's kind of polite. I think we're arriving at, we both have mirrored experiences because neither of us understands, let's say, all the nuance and complexity and intricacies of like the other language, right? So we both wish that the other language was just more direct all the time.
Or I think it's a matter of like work talk
Yeah.
versus casual talk.
That's true
maybe.
too. Yeah.
I think casually, I would agree that English is more direct, or American English is more direct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it might just be a work and then casual context
Yeah.
difference.
You are right, though. In a work context, you would probably say, hey, I was wondering if you could take a look at this when you
Yeah.
have time,
Yeah.
versus like, please review this document immediately.
Yeah.
The latter is just seen as very aggressive,
Mhm.
whereas the former like gives them, space to say, oh, push back, I'm busy. When
Yeah.
is it, when you need it by? Yeah.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, I'd
So,
agree with you.
Because I don't know all the nuances of work English.
Yeah.
So I always was very conscious about,
How you ask something.
I think I always went to the extreme.
being super
very-
polite.
Yeah. Not to not offend anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm pretty sure it's the same way for
In
you
Korean.
as well in
Yeah,
Korean. Yeah. You're like overly try to be polite, right?
Actually, I wish I could. I'm
Yeah.
not equipped with the language tools to do that. So if anything, I just end up not talking.
Oh no.
Or I always lead with, 죄송합니다. 외국인인데.
Yeah.
And right, like, sorry, I'm a foreigner.
Yeah.
And then I just ask directly.
Yeah. It gets you to places though, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It works
The
for me.
foreigner card.
It does. Yeah. Foreigner card. I think I'm wondering, like, in America, I don't hear the foreigner card played as often, even though, of course, it's a land full of foreigners. That's interesting to me.
Speaking of direct and indirectness, I'll give you some more interesting insights as a Korean.
Yeah.
Even in Korea, we have a perception of certain regions, people from certain regions being more direct and indirect.
Yeah.
Like the most direct people are from Gyeongsangdo.
Oh,
Right.
I thought you were going to say Seoul.
No, where I came from.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
they're very
The Shigor.
the Shigor. Sorry, not Shigor. They're very developed cities
Okay,
there.
okay.
Anyways, yeah, because this is a Seoul person perception, so everything outside of Seoul is farmland.
The reason I said that was in the U.S., the
Yeah.
perception is city people
Yeah.
are very direct and kind of rude, whereas more country, urban, more country folk are more polite and just more indirect.
Yeah. Anyways, so Gyeongsangdo people are known to be very blunt and direct. So their language is like that too.
Yeah.
Whereas the most indirect and I want to say vague characteristics is Chungcheongdo.
Oh, okay.
Is a region right south of Gyeonggi-do.
Okay.
You know where Daejeon is?
No,
So it's like
but I know south of Gyeonggi-do. Yeah.
yeah, it's
So like very central Korea.
they're known to be very slow and then indirect.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of like memes about a Chungcheongdo person.
Like get to the point. Get to the point. Get to the point.
Yeah, like for instance, if you're, let's say, you wanted to meet someone and
Yeah.
the other person was very late.
Yeah.
Like a normal Seoul person would be, oh, like, why are you so late or something.
Yeah.
A Chungcheongdo person, this is all just joking.
Okay.
but
Sure. Yeah.
Chungcheongdo person would say, 이럴 거면 그냥 내일 오지 그랬어. Do you know what that means?
If you were going to be this late, let's just do it tomorrow.
Why didn't you just come tomorrow?
Oh, okay.
But not in like a sarcastic way.
Oh, like straight up.
Yeah, it's like, oh, 이럴 거면 그냥 내일 오지 그래.
Oh, okay, okay.
And there's a 사투리 or an accent, Chungcheongdo accent,
To it,
which
yeah.
I can't do. But anyways,
But it makes it even more funny when you hear it, right?
you know that guy Baekjong-won,
No.
the cooking guy.
Yes, I
everywhere.
think I know who you mean. Yeah.
He's famous for having the Chungcheongdo accent.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. No, but that's good to know. And it's also interesting, like the first region you said,
Yeah,
it's more like country, right? Underdeveloped.
Gyeongsangdo.
And so in a sense, they're direct. I think Seoul people would say, oh, they have no manners, let's say, right?
But I want to stress that the second largest city in Korea is in Gyeongsangdo. Which
Okay,
is Busan.
let's take that out of it. My point here was, though, that the perception in Seoul, at least, is when you speak directly, you don't have manners.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's true, right?
yeah, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so in a sense, again, it's like really elevating this element of speech where if you can speak indirectly and still get your point across, it's
Yeah.
almost like more mannered and more cultured. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, I want to, here's a classic example. I was running late and I think I was messaging someone and I just translate through Papago or whatever, or Google Translate. And equivalently, it's something like, oh, 죄송합니다. 저는 조금 늦을 거예요. Right? And, I think I realized in the past when someone else tells me they're going to be late, they never say that. It's always like, 죄송합니다. 근데 좀 5분 or 늦을 것 같아요. And that ending like 걸 같아요. Again, I'm butchering it, but I feel like that's used all the time now, and now I see it everywhere, and now I try to use it everywhere, and I feel more Korean. So could you explain to me the nuance between like, hey, I'm gonna be late, or it seems like I might be late?
Okay, I think that's very interesting and something that I've never thought of, but is also actually very true. So when you say, this is something that you never say though, 늦을 거예요 is implies intention. Like I will, it almost sounds like I will intentionally be late.
Oh,
저
okay.
늦을 거예요.
Yeah.
Whereas 늦을 것 같아요, in my understanding, has a nuance of it's inevitable. Like I wanted to be there on time, but I think I might be late.
So it implies intention behind it.
I think so.
I see.
Yeah. That's the nuance that I get. Like,
Yeah.
저 늦을 거예요 almost feels like, oh, you're intentionally doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Let's say, okay, this is a very strange occasion that I'm setting up, a context, but let's say there was a setup or something.
Yeah.
Right? And then the plan was that I arrive a little bit late.
Uh-huh.
Then I would say, 저 10분 정도 늦을 거예요.
Like a surprise. Let's say I'm escorting a surprise guest.
Yeah.
It's a birthday party.
제가 10분 정도 늦게 갈
Okay,
거예요.
so I'll be late.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yes.
So basically, I think in all situations I should be using 늦을 것 같아요. Like I think I'll be late.
Yeah, if you're like running behind the time, you wanted to get there on time, but inevitably because of traffic or something, you might be late, then it's always 늦을 것 같아요.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in English. It's the difference between... So if I were to say like I'm running 5 minutes late or hey, I think I'm going to be 5 minutes late, as a recipient, those are identical. Yeah. Even though I think those are more the direct translations from Korean. It's like, hey, I might be 5 minutes late or I'll be 5 minutes late. I don't interpret anything differently there. Yeah, which is maybe why like now that I know that there's a huge difference between the two, there's like a lot of subtlety to the Korean language. I'm only still learning. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm learning a lot from you about the Korean language.
Things you never thought about before.
Things I've never thought about.
Yeah. Another example, and this might just be like a phrasing quirk, but also like...
so fun, by the way.
You know, when you go to a store, right? And like let's say, you know, the first thing they say is like, 어떻게 오셨어요? Like, how did you come here, right? And it's also like obviously not, what's the right word? It's not, they're not asking you like how you came here, right? But you know, when my wife and I first moved here and people asked us that, we were like, I don't know why you need to know, but we came by car. Or I don't know why you need to know, but we came by taxi or bus or subway.
Yeah.
And they're like, 어떻게 도와줄 수 있어요? Or whatever, like, how can I help you? So that's like the more direct, like in America, the first question someone would ask you at like a customer service desk is, oh, how may I help you, right? First in Korea, they just ask like, oh, how did you come here by? Or whatever. And so again, it might just be a phrasing quirk.
Yeah, I think it's more like, what brought you here?
Oh,
like,
what brought you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
어떻게 오셨어요?
Yeah.
Like, what's the occasion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting. You know that scene? It reminds me of the scene in this K-drama called The Glory.
Yeah.
There was a famous scene that became a meme where there's this villain guy.
Yeah.
Who's, I think it's the scene where he like rushes into a school to protect his daughter or something. And then the teachers are like, 어떻게 오셨어요?
Yeah.
And he's like, 차 타고요. And then gets to the point.
Oh, so you actually said that. But yeah.
But it's like in a very sarcastic,
Yeah.
funny way.
Yeah. When I use it, it is not sarcastic or funny. It's purely ignorance. But no, I think also when I'm on the phone calling a Korean, again, customer service person, whenever I just talk very directly and like, hey, here's what I need. I can tell they're very taken aback, which is like, I don't lead with like that intro, right? Like, here's the situation, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, oh, here's how you can help me. And I just find that I can tell they take it a little bit, like they're not expecting it.
I see.
And then I have to like go back and rewind and like kind of lead up to the question, and then I ask it again, and then I think they're more willing or inclined to help me.
Interesting.
But yeah, I just think they think it's either rude or aggressive if I just ask so directly and bluntly. Yeah.
I think now that you mention it, there are a lot of those nuanced, I guess, things that people say that doesn't really mean what they directly mean, right? For instance, like 식사하셨어요 means that
Did you eat?
yeah, but it's more like how are you doing? Or like
Really? Like that's true?
yeah.
식사 like did you eat means how are you doing?
I mean, you definitely can answer by 뭐
Yeah.
김치찌개 먹었어요, but it
Yeah.
also means that how are you doing?
Okay.
Yeah. Or like also this is a phrase that involves food, but 우리 다음에 밥 한번 먹자.
Yeah. It's like let's meet again, right?
Let's have a meal together.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it just doesn't mean anything.
Oh, it's just like see you later.
Yeah.
So if someone said that to me and I was like, oh, like when are you free? Let's schedule it right now. They might be a little bit like, oh, this guy doesn't know.
Yeah, but for the record, even some Korean people find
Yeah.
that very confusing. Some people who have more direct characters
Yeah.
would actually say like
Yeah.
when. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think this episode maybe is a little less about direct and indirectness and more just about like some quirks and nuances of the language that I'm still picking up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one final thing I wanted to bring up was when I'm watching Korean dramas, and I think, from the community boards on Reddit and others, I think this is a very common frustration of Western viewers, which is a lot of times 99% of the conflict in a K-drama is purely miscommunication. And it's just like, the female lead doesn't properly explain to the male lead the situation, and the male lead like misunderstands and storms off. But he also doesn't ask to clarify. He just makes assumptions too. And of course, it's part of the, fun of K-dramas.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'm just, thinking, screaming at the TV or whatever, be like, just say it. Like, just, you don't have to be so indirect about it or leave it unsaid, right? But I do think as I stay here longer and longer, I do start to understand a lot more. I forgot the exact example, but there was one K-drama I watched and I went to Reddit to read about the discussion of it. And all these Western viewers presumably were like, oh, it's so frustrating when like X didn't just say this thing, right? But actually for me, like when I was watching it, I kind of understood. I was like, oh yeah, like they can't just say it because, right? It'd be, it'd put them in a position of vulnerability, or it would just be like it's just not done. Like I'm starting to understand it's not just put in there for the K-drama writers to create like this, like contrived conflict. It's actually that situation would play out that same way in real Korean life. So yeah.
I think culturally there are things that are better unsaid, but then they just know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I love you.
Exactly. Like I love you. Like
yeah, that's your classic Korean American like mentality.
Yeah.
It's like my dad or mom has never said I love you once, right?
Or more famously, like when let's say in a context of a couple and someone did something wrong to the other person.
Yeah.
You never actually like say, hey, I'm angry at you because blah, 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 blah. You just want the other person to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but in that context specifically, I'm like, well, that's going to be a problem long term. They need to have better communication patterns.
Yeah. Do you know this famous interaction between couples? I think this is pretty universal. The one thing that the guys are always dreading when they're in a fight is the word, like let's say the guy said I'm sorry.
Yeah. For what?
Yeah. 미안해. 뭐가 미안한데? Anyways,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Any other closing thoughts on communication?
What's so funny about your frustration on indirectness is it's so relatable to me. And I think it's very relative because there was a time when I was working at a company where half of the workers were Korean and half were Japanese. And so there were a lot of communication. There had to be a lot of communication between Korean people and Japanese people.
Yeah.
And the number one complaint, this is me being not so politically correct or diplomatic, is I'm not working there anymore, but number one complaint of Korean people is that they just don't say it directly. Japanese people
Korean people are complaining
they just
about
won't say the thing that they have in mind.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. You have to go around and around and around
Until they finally say it.
No, they just never
They
say
just
it
never say it.
until you understand what they meant.
Yeah.
So I think it's very cultural
Yeah.
and also very relative.
I see.
Yeah. But yeah, it was fun.
Okay. Wait, Jun, we have a new Patreon subscriber from the past week.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this someone that you know?
It is.
Okay,
They wanted to be called by AKA.
Thank you, AKA.
Korean American.
American, Korean American.
I think they're Korean American, but they want to say that they're more American than Korean.
Okay. What are you? Are you a Korean American Korean?
No, KKA. I definitely am still, I think I'm somewhere in the middle now.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely, obviously, 2.5 years ago.
Thank you very much.
American, Korean American.
Yeah. Huge shout out to AKA.
Yes, thank you, AKA, for your support.
Yeah. Did AKA mention any topics that they want us to cover?
Yes, they're in our Discord. We had a good conversation, and they brought up a few
They're in our
topics.
Discord?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
They brought up a few topics for future episodes.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, on that note though, at my third daughter's birthday party, her 4-year-old birthday party, her classmates were there, and their mom was there as well. And then when they saw that I was there, so for context, that birthday parties a lot of times it's just the moms.
Okay.
But because I was there, she was like, "Oh, my husband was really excited to meet you, because he spent a lot of time in America." And so she called him. He came late, and we ended up talking at the end for a little bit. But it was really funny because at the end he was like, "Oh, I wasn't sure if you were Korean American or like Korean American or whatever." But he's like, "Oh, you're not just Korean American. You're like very American."
Did he say that in English?
In English, yeah.
What was
yeah.
that person? Korean American?
No, so he had been born and raised in Korea, went to the US, I think, in high school.
Oh, okay.
Spent college and a little time after college there, and then came back. So he's more Korean than American.
I see.
But I think he's just highlighting like there's a spectrum here,
I see.
and you never really know, right?
So it's like, you're actually an American.
He's like, you're not even like really Korean. Like you are Korean American,
Yeah.
but you're more pretty much straight up American
I see.
with some Korean ethnicity, right? And so there's just a spectrum here. It's not just like if you were born in America or when you moved to America, but also culturally, like how much did your parents, bring you up in like a Korean mentality? If you grew up in Missouri versus like K-Town, LA, that's going to be different. And so anyway, it was hilarious because he was like, "Oh, you're really Korean American."
Out of curiosity, at a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like Korean, and 10 being just like totally American.
Yeah.
What do you think you are?
Me?
Yeah.
Right now?
Right now.
Oof. I think I'm a 6. Yeah.
You're a 6.
Yeah.
So you're like Korean American, right?
I'm pretty much in the middle, but slightly more
towards-
American. Yeah.
I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
What were you when you first came?
Probably an 8. Yeah.
Oh, so we Koreanized you too.
Two. Jun, are you curious how I would rate you?
But like, am I even qualified to get into that scale? Okay, let's say. Okay.
I mean, I was gonna say like a 4.
I'm a 4.
Yeah. How do you feel?
I started as a 1.
No, but you
When I was
were
4.
not a 1 even when you were 6 years old. You lived in America.
That's true. I think back then I was like probably a 6.
okay.
when I was 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
And
a 6 when you moved to America
Yeah,
for the first time. Yeah.
and then like right after I came back, I was
Oh.
probably a 6.
Do you think you immediately already became more American than Korean?
Yeah,
Wow.
because when do you start actually speaking? At
2?
what age? Okay. Anyways, when you're more actively picking up a
I get it.
language,
Yeah,
at that period of like 6 to 8.
It's like 4 to 6. Yeah. I
yeah,
get it.
that's when I was in the States.
Okay,
so.
that makes sense. And then how about right before you left for the US for college?
Oh, I was definitely like
1 again.
yeah, like a 2.
But you had
Two
some
max.
English skills, so maybe.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how about when you immediately returned to Korea from grad school?
I think I was. I'm surprised that you think of me as a 4. I still.
I feel like you have a lot of course you do have some
Yeah.
like Korean tendencies for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I can see a lot of like Western thinking and ideals and understanding.
Maybe it's
in
because we're on an English speaking basis.
Oh, that's
You've
true.
never met
That
my
Korean
actual
Jun.
Korean-
Oh.
I still consider myself as like a 2 or like 3 max.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Korean Jun. I need to meet Korean Jun one time. Am I ever going to see you in a Korean context?
If your
we work
Korean
at,
gets good enough to
work at a Korean company
Yeah.
with you. Interesting. Okay. All right. But yeah, with that, let's end. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Oh, I like this one. This one's short.
Not that short. Maybe not as short as you thought it was. Follow us on social media. Instagram at Korean American Podcast.
Mhm. And we're also very active on YouTube, TikTok,
Very active.
and yeah,
I can't even say it sarcastically. We are active.
we are active.
Yeah, we
Like,
post a lot of reels.
We post videos like 3 or 4 times.
Well,
a week.
you do. Yeah, you post on our behalf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Thank you. See you next time.
thank you again, AKA. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
내일 오지 내일. Oh, I can't do this. 내일 오지 그러셨어요.